Good morning to you. So we are kicking off our show with a bit of history in Mentor and something to do on this snowy day or maybe the rest of the week. That's where we find Todd Arrington at the James A. Garfield National Historic Site. Todd, it is so good to see you. You are always a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
So we are in the beautiful historic house there. And I know that, are you in the library right now?
We're actually on the memorial landing right outside the library.
Okay.
We'll be going to the library in just a second.
So there's so much history that this house holds. And I know so much of it, what was originally there, the Historical Society has really tried to keep it intact.
That's true. We are James A. Garfield National Historic Site. We're a unit of the National Park Service, just like our friends down at Cuyahoga Valley or First Ladies down in Canton. Yes, we're here in the home of President James A. Garfield, and you're right, we have about 85% original artifacts in this house. So when people come here and see us, they are seeing things that the Garfields actually owned and used.
It really, there's so much knowledge that you have, and I love, you know, when you walk through this home, because you can you get tours to go through this house. When you walk through, probably the room that just takes your breath away is this library.
Absolutely, yeah. This is really the crown jewel of the home. This is what people really want to see when they come here. We're now actually in the Memorial Library. This was added onto the home after President Garfield's assassination. He was assassinated in 1881, and then his widow, Lucretia Rudolph Garfield, added this onto the house a few years after that. This is a room that she envisioned as a place to keep his memory alive for herself and for their family, and really for the country too. And then on a more practical level, it was a place to store a lot of his stuff, including books. Garfield was a scholar, an academic, prior to his career in the Army and in politics, and he had thousands and thousands of books, and we have about 2,000 of those volumes on the shelves in the house now, including in this room. The other really interesting thing about this room is that it is, in fact, the birthplace of the idea of presidential libraries.
Yes.
So all of the modern presidential libraries that you see actually come out of this idea that started here right in this room in Mentor, Ohio.
That is, I mean, when you think about that, to have a first right here in Northeast Ohio like that, that is pretty amazing. And he had a big family, correct?
Well, yeah, they had 7 children total. 2 of those children died in childhood, which was unfortunately not at all uncommon at that point in American history. So they did have 5 children who survived to adulthood. Of course, they were, you know, from teenagers on down to young kids when President Garfield was assassinated. By the time Mrs. Garfield died in 1918, she, of course, outlived him by about 3.5 decades. She had 16 grandchildren. All of those 5 children that survived had grown up and had families of their own.
So he wanted this house to be a place that the family could gather, the young boys could learn about farming. I mean, it's a big house when you consider the fact that he wanted to have space for his family.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they bought this property in 1876. They did expand the home once while he was alive, and then, of course, this larger expansion for the Memorial Library after his death. But yes, they wanted a place that would be a place they could come in the summers when they were getting away from Washington. But then also they did intend for this to be their retirement home as well. Mrs. Garfield, of course, ended up living here for the rest of, off and on for the rest of her life, which, as I said, ended in 1918. We're now standing in this beautiful vault. We call it the vault. Mrs. Garfield called it the memory room. It was in this room that she actually preserved the cataloged and organized papers, letters, diaries that her husband left behind when he died in 1881. She basically created an archive here of his life and his public career. So it's really this room, when you combine it with the outer portion of the library, that makes this the nation's first, the place where the nation's ideas about presidential libraries were born. So this is a really historic room as well. His papers are not actually here anymore. These are reproductions. The original papers were here for about 50 years, but they're now in the Library of Congress. Probably the most famous artifact in this room that everybody loves is this beautiful wreath up here on the shelf. This is, believe it or not, an original wreath from 1881, sent to Mrs. Garfield for the president's funeral by Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom. Mrs. Garfield had it preserved with wax after the funeral. and she put it in this beautiful frame, and it's been here in this room ever since the room was finished.
It's just truly, you learn, again, so much. We're going to delve into more of the history behind this wonderful house, and we're also going to talk about the tours, how you can go in and see this wonderful home and have someone like Todd help you through to really learn as much as you can about our history that's so rich here in Northeast Ohio. So we'll talk more about the tours as well just a little bit. So Todd, if you don't mind sticking around, I'll be chatting with you again momentarily.
Will do. Thank you.
All right.